Now, most of the action was focused on the Senate side of the building, but the Assembly, which passed the gay marriage bill a fourth time last week, has its own issues, most notably rent regulations. This is a topic that is very important to the downstate-dominated Democratic Conference. Now, joining me now for an update on what's happening in the lower house while most of our attention is focused elsewhere is Assemblyman Sam Hoyt. Assemblyman, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Liz.
So let's start with the rent laws, because I think that this is very confusing to upstaters, and I've covered the rent laws for like 10 years, and I still don't understand it. It's a little tricky. What is the sticking point issue for your conference?
Well, I don't think it's our conference that is the sticking point. I mean, the bottom line is the Senate majority are reluctant to pass the extender, as I understand it, simply because they're adamant that some form of tax cap be agreed to first. So I think the Assembly majority, which is dominated, as you know, by New York City or New York City area members, are ready and anxious to get the rent control extended and maybe expanded. But the Senate is holding it up because they want the tax cap, among other things.
Well, that's not the only thing. I mean, the landlords give money to the Senate Republicans, and they want the rent laws, if they're extended at all, not to be strengthened, to increase tenant protections, right? And your colleagues who are down in New York City, this is a very important issue for them.
Well, they would like to increase tenant protections, and my instinct is that ultimately what we'll see happen is the current law extended, because obviously, yes, those landlords are a powerful lobby. They have the ear of the Senate, no doubt. And I think that the Senate understands that in the end, an extension is going to happen. It's just in what form.
Do you believe then, let me just make sure I heard you right, you believe that what will happen eventually is a straight extender? Will your colleagues go for that? Because it seems like they're not going to be willing to do it.
You know, I can't speak for my New York City colleagues. I'm just telling you what my instinct is.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word gridlock earlier, and people are frustrated and people are anxious to get all of these three and other issues resolved. And in the end, compromise is what we do here in Albany, and I'm just telling you how I feel in the end it's going to end up.
Assemblyman, as an upstater, I think, what's it like in those conferences when your downstate colleagues are saying, you know what, we're not going to vote on, we're going to hold up everything. We're willing for everything to stay the same. No tax cap, for example, which I think is something that a lot of upstate Democrats are allied with Republicans on. Is it frustrating for you?
Yeah, it's frustrating, but we are, you know, at peace with the fact that we serve in a House that is dominated by New York City colleagues. You know, I sit through long debates and conference discussions just today, Liz, on the whole taxi cab issue in New York City, and medallions and livery, and you know, it doesn't impact my community one iota, but you just roll with it.
Yeah, but that's actually been the argument from the Senate Republicans for years, that if they don't control the Senate chamber, then no one has upstate's back, if you will. I mean, is there any truth to that, do you think? Because, as you mentioned, that New York City controls your conference so much, do you worry that if, in fact, like when the Senate was controlled by Democrats, that upstate got lost in the shuffle?
Well, two things. One, Shelley Silver, in my opinion, has been sensitive to and open about the needs of upstate. We all, despite being a minority in the conference, have access to the Speaker, and I think he's got an open mind about the issues of upstate. Secondly, Andrew Cuomo similarly might be from New York City, but Andrew Cuomo, in my opinion, has shown enormous willingness to focus on upstate issues as well.
Well, I mean, and just recently he actually had his executive director of the state party go up and broker a peace between the warring factions of the Democrats in Erie County. Is that going to hold?
Charlie King did a better job than Jimmy Carter could have done, Liz. I think he's achieved something that most people thought was impossible. Will it hold? I'm certainly hopeful, because when Democrats are fighting amongst themselves, as we have for far too long in Erie County, it's a dream come true for the Republicans. This year we have a very tough race for county executive, where the Republican county executive is running against a great Democrat named Mark Poloncarz, who you've had on the show.
Right.
And a united front among the Democrats, Liz, dramatically increases Mark Poloncarz's chances of winning that seat.
You know, it's been suggested that there's been so much attention in Erie County because there's a concern that if, in fact, Collins manages to win, that he'll come back and maybe challenge the governor in 2016. Do you believe that that's the case?
Well, I don't think it's a great concern.
Hold on now, I got that wrong. 12:30, 20. The next re-election, right? Not a presidential, the gubernatorial. Just to be clear.
Right. I don't think we have to look at a presidential challenge. You know, I don't think it's a great concern. Chris Collins is a conservative Republican whose credibility, I think, has been challenged over time, and I wouldn't view him as a serious challenger to Governor Cuomo. That said, we in Erie County feel strongly that it's time for Chris Collins to go, that we can do much better. A fiscal conservative like Mark Poloncarz would do a far better job. But I don't think there's any effort to, at the state level, to send a message with regard to Chris Collins. It's just the Democrats united in Erie County to put a Democrat in office.
Well, okay. So just let's bring it back to the Capitol here, even though that Erie County politics is sort of endlessly fascinating. However, we still have a legislative session before you guys get to that county executive race. And if you don't leave the Capitol, you won't be around to campaign for Mark Poloncarz. So that's a problem. True. Do you envision, are you hearing from the Speaker that you're actually going to stick around through Wednesday and even Thursday? Because that's what we've been hearing.
We've heard from the Speaker to be prepared through Wednesday evening. We haven't conferenced since he made that statement. I've heard rumors about being here through Friday. So, listen, everybody's committed to getting it done. Would everybody like to be back in their districts, working out of their district offices as opposed to here at the Capitol? Yes, but you know, we'll stay until it gets done. And if it means that the dry cleaners in Albany get a little extra business from us, good for them.
Well, is your House not prepared to vote on a tax cap until you get that rent control deal? Is that, in fact, what the situation is?
Yeah, I think you can say that safely, that even though there was talk about not linking them, they're linked. And I don't think that you're going to see the Assembly acting or agreeing to a tax cap bill until we're certain that the rent control issue is resolved satisfactorily. Similarly, you're not going to see the Senate act on rent control until they're satisfied with the tax cap.
Right, and we're not going to see a vote on gay marriage until those two other things are dealt with, which means that your conference might actually have to vote a fifth time on gay marriage if, in fact, there are amendments. Have you seen those amendments yet?
I haven't. I've heard that they've been negotiated. There might be a draft. I haven't seen them. And truthfully, I think we voted on a good bill. Danny O'Donnell's efforts in the Assembly have been extraordinary, and we passed a good bill. Would I rather see that bill as is become the law? Yes, but again, I think I speak for my conference when I say we're prepared to compromise as necessary, as needed, to get marriage equality as the law of the land in New York State. And I know that Andrew Cuomo, the governor, isn't going to compromise so much that the bill is no longer a good bill.
Is that what you're concerned about? Or you're concerned that in the rush to get an agreement, which would really be historic, I mean, for the Senate to pass the state, it would be the largest state in the nation to legalize same-sex marriage. You're concerned that the bill gets weakened, so weakened that, in fact, it won't withstand legal challenges?
Well, yes. I mean, of course we're concerned that whatever compromises that are proposed and ultimately end up in a bill are one that that we're all comfortable with. I mean, the fact is, we're kind of negotiating against ourselves at this point in the Assembly because we've passed a bill, and it's a good bill, and we're happy with it. Anything else is watering down what we've already done, so obviously we're going to take a very close look at whatever's presented to us.
You, just before I let you go, you have a bill that actually you've been working on for some time that addresses vacant buildings and the housing crisis. It's a serious problem upstate. Do you want to just give us a snapshot on that?
Yeah, a quick snapshot. It's called the land banks bill, and land banks are a creative and innovative approach that have been used nationally to address the abandoned housing and abandoned property crisis in cities like Buffalo, Rochester, in fact, all upstate cities. The city of Buffalo has over 10,000 abandoned properties, and this land bank legislation will, in fact, become an opportunity for cities like Buffalo to have kind of a centralized depository for all of these abandoned properties, to establish a planning process and a regional plan for the ultimate disposition of that land, be it green space, park space, new development, et cetera. So it's very exciting. It's worked very, very well in other cities, and credit to Shelley Silver. I mean, here's an example of the Speaker recognizing an upstate problem and allowing this innovative, outside-the-box legislation to pass his House.
Well, we will take a closer look at that in the future. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank you, Assemblyman Hoyt, for joining us. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Liz.